Welcome back, folks. Nice to see a lot of people still here from the previous session. Today, we are really dedicating it to story and its power. That thing that we get most excited about when we're kids. That thing that sends us off into dreamland. If we were lucky enough to have somebody to read us or tell us a story. And we're going to dive into a specific tradition of Syrian storytelling today. See if we can shift perspectives and, kind of channel life to a realistic kind of hope. So, please welcome Masa Kateb.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I come with peace, compassion, and blessings to you and hopefully to all beings everywhere. I was in the bus coming from Madrid to Boom at a time where I was meant to arrive a little bit earlier in the day to visually see what's around me. It's my first time being here, and I intentionally wanted to come with not too much research and looking online at different things, so an exploration of an adventure. For whatever reasons, we ended up being the last bus that leaves from Madrid. We left around this time. So we got to catch the sunset crossing borders. It was my first time to Spain also. And we got to this line. Many people, incredible bus driver, massive bus went backwards for like a long time to get us from another entry. And for whatever reasons, we ended up going all around the mountains in order for us to get an access that a normal car would have been able to go through, but because we were in a big bus, it wasn't a possibility. And we were able to catch and surround all of this beautiful vibe of the place as a big end of a spiral, and then dove in towards this beautiful land that we get to share together. We arrived definitely after midnight. Everything was dark. The Boom staff and volunteers have been incredibly hospitable, so thank you for having us. And we were shown to where we are staying and heard music, and the adventurous, my name is Masa, by the way, so the adventurous Masa in the heart wanted to go and explore with Eda and Adil, who we are coming together. And we followed the music, we followed the sound, and they were sound testing at the alchemy. I got a bit of a taste of what's happening, and I wasn't under one of the shades. Everything was closed. And I looked up. And I saw stars that I relate to. I saw the same constellations that I get to see, that I got to learn about for the first time in my life when I was still back in Syria. The same constellations that I got to grow a relationship to when I was living in the desert. In the UAE, I lived in Dubai and Abu Dhabi for a portion as a host country before I sought refuge to find home in Vancouver, Canada. I've been there for about 4.5 years now. But I looked at the sky and I saw the constellations and I could feel my heart squeeze love. I felt home. And I appreciate the night sky. I've never been to the Northern Hemisphere yet. Of course, I am very curious and I look forward to it. If it's meant to be, I look forward to seeing as much as I am meant to see. The first constellation that I got to welcome into my existence was told to me in Arabic, in my mother tongue. And it was quite a little bit of a time after until I figured out that it was Orion in English. By raise of hand, has anyone heard of Orion before in constellations? Nice. They're quite easy to identify, more in the winter than in the summer, yet also in the summer we can see them. This is Northern Hemisphere. You can see them in the Southern Hemisphere as well, but to a certain extent. 3 next to each other, and then from the center you go right and left, and there are 2 more that balance the constellation. Some say that the pyramids in Egypt were built in alignment with those stars. It was August 11, 2013. It was the first time that I came back to Syria after I left for the first time. So my journey has a little bit of a ping pong, and many other refugees do move in different places, seeking home, seeking stability. I'm grateful to many privileges that I was, and I continue to be blessed with, that helped me carve this path. You see, I never wanted to leave Syria. And I share this with so many, I want to say hundreds of thousands, but I can also probably say all the millions of Syrians. There are people in Syria that were under all the things you can imagine. Siege, bombs, explosions, their homes are falling down. Yet they would say, I don't want to go. Where am I going to go? This is my home. Of course I'm not going to go. Look at what's happening. I don't want to be a refugee. I'd rather stay home. And if I am meant to die, then I die. We're all going to die at the end. I was born and raised in Damascus. And I was in love with Damascus head over heels before I even thought that I could leave. I've always wanted to grow old in Damascus. You see, I share my home city with the collective of humanity as the oldest continuously inhabited capital in the world. The whole city is a UNESCO site, and within the city there are endless UNESCO sites. You walk the streets and you can feel the soul of the city. An ancient land. Same as this ancient land. Same as all the lands, really. Everywhere is ancient. Civilization, on the other hand, varies. And I appreciate that the theme of Boom is Anthropocene. How has humans actually contributed to where we are today? And wherever you are and listening to the story, don't try to remember something. I will be jumping through different waves of sprinkles of love, and they will tie up, hopefully, in your heart, and if not, may they tie up in heavens and in earth. So I invite you not to have an attachment to something to try to remember. surrender into, in my spiritual practice, there's actually a recommendation to say whatever is meant to, so many things you observe, so many things we observe and experience, so many distractions, so many messages, so many lessons. And it tells us if it's meant to, if you're meant to remember it, you will remember it. If you're not meant to remember it, just let it go. So I just invite you to listen from that place, if that could be a suggestion. You see, back in time before anything really was there apart from nature, and as humans were trying to seek, they were seeking water. As I have been seeking water, cold water, hard to find. My Eda calls it gold. So there are different golds in Boom. One of them is ice. But in the seeking of water, humans found a river on the right side of the Mediterranean. So there's the Mediterranean Sea. I'm going to flip my map to you. And so we are in Portugal, and then there's the Mediterranean Sea, there is Europe, there is Africa, and there is Asia. And the Mediterranean Sea has Syria on this side of it. There's land. That land, before borders, it used to be called the land of Sham. Sham. Borders came and it turned into different countries, but it was just one land, the land of Sham. Damascus has many names. One of the names of Damascus is Sham. I speak Arabic, and it's a language I share with billions of people around the world. We all read and write the same language, but when you come to the speech, each would have a different dialect. I speak Shami. Shami is the Messian accent. Back in the day, in that land, in the Mediterranean, not on the coast, inside the land, after hills and what do you call when the land is flat? Day? Plain? Valleys. Thank you. Yeah. There was a river, and behind the river there was a mountain. And they decided to set there. And that's where Damascus was built. Damascus has a river in it. It's called Berada. And by the way, I don't know if any of you attended the quantum care sessions in the morning, but if you want to move in any way, shape, or form, your body, your breath, you want to stand, you want to walk around, you want to stretch, listen to your body, please. This is the whole practice. This is my very first time in my life doing storytelling sitting. I'm always standing up and moving and walking around and expressing in every single cell of my body. And I decided to challenge myself this time, to be one with my vulnerability and see if I can do it from the place of where I am practicing, to breathe and ground into sky, into earth, and into my heart. You see, Damascus, forward into the future, the Damascus that I was born in, on a new moon. I was born on a new moon, which is a whole other story. It has a portion of the city that is the ancient part of the city. Really high walls, like walls of a castle. Circle. Almost all cities in Syria are a circle. And Damascus has 7 gates. Big, massive gates. Where people used to grow their plants, raise their animals, live and trade, and then go into the city where there are markets to sell, to live. And there are homes. You see, homes in Damascus are literally built on love. And I would love to tell you how. Knowing that we are a culture with many, many idioms. As you walk through the streets of old Damascus, some alleys are quite big for like one car to pass. I don't think we have any single small street for two cars to go sideways. Yet some people do it. It's so tight you would freak out. But people are really good drivers in small places in Damascus. And some alleys in the city are so tiny, you actually need to, like you're walking in one of the, in some small little, like I went to Madrid for less than 24 hours and it really reminded me of Damascus. You get to see how there are small little alleys that could take you somewhere else. And so in Damascus, there are alleys that are so tiny, you actually need to make yourself walk this way, and then it opens up, and then it takes you into somewhere to explore. And exploring Damascus was part of my survival mechanism, if I were to say. I always wanted to be myself with my family, with my friends. Yet, for so many different reasons, complex and simple at the same time, I couldn't be my full self. There was always a portion of who I am that was left outside the door, or more than one. I would always have to observe and see how much can I share, how much can I trust, who are these people, would they accept me for who I am? And I always had many question marks, supported by the reality that we get to see of treatment of vulnerable communities. I had the honor and the privilege to co-create community as much as we could for however it was meant to be for that time, before and during the revolution. Online, in person. I have so much gratitude for the internet, above imagination. Every single refugee in the world is utterly grateful for internet and having a phone, if they can. But you see, people judge and assume. When many of the Syrian refugees, at least, of course, I cannot speak about anyone's experience and anyone's perspective other than mine. So I invite you to welcome that, as I cannot be, as much as I can try to be inclusive, I can only cover a portion of the lens. I'm going to take a sip of juice for one beat. The beat took me. Sorry. So between university, school, basketball, many different groups of friends, communities, fun, party, music, travel for music, support education, volunteer. Yet so many times, I would find myself alone in the streets of Damascus, old Damascus. My heart would always take me there. And I would play a game. Every time I want to explore a different possibility. And I got to walk. And maybe now actually reflecting, maybe that's where and how I have so much appreciation to walking meditation and all different other practices of connecting to the heart. You see, as you're walking the streets of Damascus, again to visualize, it's a circle from afar, but it's really big. High walls, yet inside the houses, each has a fountain. You see, in Damascus, as we have a river, we try to make the most we can from water. Houses in old Damascus, we don't have houses for 2 people. Yet we are a culture and a community of bigger families, and bigger families that live with each other. So the tete وجدو, the grandmother and the grandfather, would be having the home. We call it actually Beit Arabi, the Arabic house. Because people live in buildings, of course. I never lived in a traditional Damascene home. And apparently there is a full home in New York, in one of the museums in New York. They have an actual full Damascene house in New York. So if you're ever there, you can be curious to explore it if you wish. But there is the element of water in our lives as much as possible. Some homes would have, as there's a river, and the river goes down into smaller streams, and then the smallest ones, we call them sa'iyah. Now, sa'iyah, to yasqi, is to actually offer someone to drink water. Sa'iyah is a small little stream of water that would cross through the home and crosses in different homes. So kids would play, they would make paper ships, shachtura, we say, and then you put the shachtura in here, and maybe you put a note on it, you send it to your neighbor, and then it goes. But oftentimes of a practice is that you get a watermelon, cold or hot, and usually watermelon selling, everything selling in Damascus has a style, if I am to say. We love expressing a little bit extra. And we do it in sound, we do it with music. We make songs for almost everything. So if I want to sell cucumber, for example, small cucumbers, I would say, أصابع الببو يا خيار, the fingers of the baby, oh, cucumbers, come, bye. And then there is always a flow. For watermelons, we say al maksar ya battikh. You do not buy a watermelon like this and then you hit it and try to see, are you green, are you white inside, are you red or pink? We say, okay, al maksar is you break it. So then they would have this big stands of watermelon, and then you would go and say, I want this one. And then he would take it for you and I said he because oftentimes male men are the ones who do that work. And he would open a slice of the watermelon, take it out, show you. If you don't like the color, we will cut another watermelon for you. And if you like it, it's yours. And then people take watermelon, and then the practice and the tradition is that you either would put it in the fountain, and the fountain always, it's a circle, but it's not a circle. Oftentimes it has like geometric edges. If you've ever seen any Islamic architecture in any part of the world, so within that inspiration, the whole homes, ceilings, walls, furniture, everything is within that element of art. And then the fountain that always has cold water coming, not from the river. We don't drink from the river. There's a source of water called fige. All of Damascus drinks water called fige. Just like how you would have whatever, any brand of water, you name it upon the spring. The spring is called fige. And we call it عين الفيجة. Any place of earth, land, where land breaks and water gets out, is called عين in Arabic. Now, عين is very versatile because عين is one of the letters of the alphabet, actually. So we have a letter called عين. Just like how we say, I speak Arabic. Arabic is عربي. عربي starts with عين. Also, our eye is عين as an organ. You get to manifest what you have. I grew up in a culture that taught me through not telling me what to do, but by being, is that it's a work of a collective. Everyone does everything together. Family, neighbors, friends, everything is in a collective. It is actually very, very rare that you get to spend alone time. And for me, it was something that, it continues to be something, a bit of a challenge, and I keep exploring and finding tools to explore anything outside of a collective. Yet from that lens, and I'll take you to how Damascus was built on love. I didn't forget that. I'll take you back to how Damascus is built on love. So let go of that, if it's anywhere in your heart. We celebrate in a collective, and we grieve in a collective. I left Syria for the first time on the 14th of March 2013. One day before the second year anniversary of the revolution. Things were not good. And I can leave it at that. Things were really not good. With a lot of gratitude to my family, both my parents decided that this is not safe for us anymore and we need to make a move. With appreciation to education, my father was able to seek work opportunity in Abu Dhabi. Both my parents are doctors, they're anesthesiologists. And so he said, let's go. I tried to talk my way out of it, to say I still have one more term in university to graduate. You and my mom go, I'll stay here, maybe my cousins could come and stay with me, and I'll follow you when I graduate. Of course, with respect to parents, if they say no, then and you see the reason, and you see that it makes sense, then you go. And they both promised me that I will come back to Damascus, hopefully, and I did. I left, crossed the borders by land to Beirut. That was my path. Many checkpoints on the way. By that time, Damascus airport was closed. Then you can always be prepared, and you can make sure that you check your name. Is my name anywhere? Can I pass? Can I cross? And again, gratitude to internet. It helped us connect in the most incredible way. From Beirut, I flew to Abu Dhabi, which in the next year after my landing there was entitled or won the award of the safest city in the world. So I went from an extreme of war into an extreme of peace. And I can still remember my first night in Abu Dhabi, I couldn't sleep. It was too quiet. It was too quiet, and I would always wait and anticipate something to explode in the background or some sound to come. My relationship to sound has evolved in the most incredible way. I'm fascinated by the sounds I'm being able to observe in my life. Coming from a place where, and because the political situation, different weaponry were introduced at different times. So then you get to be used to different sounds. And me and many, I don't want to say all, but many Syrians can identify machinery on sound. Because you would say, something would come and you would like, oh, this is, we'd call it صوتية. صوتية is like, it's a sound bomb, so like nothing really happens, it's a sound bomb. So then that would be we would hear that sound, whatever we're doing, immediately people would like hold space and then, okay, what? Oh, sound, okay, sound, continue, everything goes on. Life goes on. And to the perspective of people refusing and not wanting to leave their homes, they were seeing how refugees were treated around the world. And they were seeing that this is, of course, not a norm. There are in many places incredible work happening of collective work of integration from both ends. So it's not the responsibility of one. But hopefully it is the coming together of a collective. When I set foot into seeking refuge in Canada, I also didn't want to call myself a refugee. Why would you? I don't look like a refugee. I know. People assume what they see on TV. I lived in Dubai and for 5 years, 4 years almost, and got merged into this diverse world of people from everywhere, working, making life, dancing, creating together. And I saw that I can kind of flow without necessarily bringing that up. Yet I landed in Canada, and I saw that there was something a little bit different than other places. They were welcoming in a way. They were welcoming to the lens of everyone's welcome, and you can be whoever you are. I can express freedom. I can explore freedom of expression and freedom of speech for the first time in my life without looking behind my back or without having to worry for my life, really. It's not just about being put in jail for a week or two. Like it's actually me not being able to be here and now. And it got me to see potential. The same potential that in my culture, it's fed to us with every single day that passes. You see, in old Damascus, as you're walking, so again, big circle, 7 gates, what's inside? Currently a mystery. But we're going to build it together. You see, as you walk, 7 gates, not too many options. You walk through some of those gates, or one of those gates, and you'll get to see big stones making the streets. Stones that were put there for thousands of years. You probably can't even count the number of foots that stepped on them. There are homes with fountains where the grandparents live and the rest of the family live. 5-bedroom, 6-bedroom, 7-bedroom homes. Big, all the family. But then the neighbor would fall in love with the woman next door. Or however genders you would want to take into the story. But love happens between neighbors. And then they would go to ask for the hand of that person in marriage. And by then, there are homes on the right side of the street, there are homes of the alley, and there are homes, a series on the left side of the alley. And in the middle, maybe you find grapevines, kind of giving shade, different plants that could be climbing on wooden structures, or just sky, really. Until people started saying, my kid loves your kid. Can I borrow your wall? عيرني حيطك. We actually, in Arabic, we say, can I borrow your wall? And if the answer is yes, then they would bring wooden pillars and create two structures like this. On them, you would build a new home for the person from this family and the person from this family to live in this new home that now exists. And then it's always an arc. So then now in many, I can't even count how many places in homes in Damascus, alleys in Damascus have the home that is based on love, on the pillars of love. We call it anatir. So actually, when you walk in the old streets of the city, you're walking under intention of love. And I really appreciate how, without necessarily knowing all of this, just being in it, it really fed me. It kept me going. At times where it felt like maybe I was on my own. Maybe there's a sprinkle of other people that could be where I am at, but how can we connect? Yet at the same time, again, I'm very grateful to my privileges and grateful to being able to have been taught English at a young age. I got to help and support translation of English content on the internet to Arabic speakers within marginalized and vulnerable communities through those spaces that we were able to create on the base of love and hope. Even though really, if you think about it, at that time, it's really difficult to find hope or to choose hope. So what do you mean there's hope? Look, it's collapsing. Everything is going sideways. No one knows what to do. Everything is not good for our people. Yet, in our spiritual practice, we believe so deeply that with hardship comes ease. Together they come together, always come together. With hardship and ease, they come together. Sometimes good things would come our way and they could be bad for us, yet we don't know it now. It may come for us after. Sometimes bad things would happen to me, yet now I see them as bad, yet God knows into the future how much time it could actually be good for me. And it happened to me so many times where I paused and I gave gratitude to something that happened in the past that I had thought it was the worst thing that could happen, yet it was meant to bring me into where I was meant to be. Living through the war in Damascus got me and many other Syrians to connect to our mortality. We're all going to die. My mom would say, don't go out to university today or stay home. Because sometimes Damascus was the most protected city in all of Syria because it's the capital. And that's for political reasons. Yet gratefully for humanity, the oldest inhabited capital in the world is a little bit in a good shape. It has seen civilizations rise and fall. This is nothing for the city of Damascus. But this is the present time that we get to share. So in reality, this is all that matters. Hey, hey. Yahio, Yahio, hey, hey, Yahio, Yahio, hey, Yahio, hey, 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 Yahio, Yahio, hey, hey, Yahio, Yahio, hey, hey, Yahio. When I first heard this chant, they call it the warrior song in the indigenous land of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations that I get to live on, my home now in Vancouver, BC, Canada. It's the warrior song of the indigenous people. It was my very first woman march in my life, anywhere. I was recovering from a knee injury as I had torn my ACL for the second time playing basketball. I played professionally for 15 years, so having only 2 injuries could be actually good. Yet here I am in Canada, it's in my first year, figuring things out. I'm on my own. And it was pretty cool to explore life on my own for a portion of time. Yet I say on my own, of course, there was beautiful community supporting me. And I will tell you how in a bit, as that is part of the solution. Or at least this is the solution that got me to experience this journey so far. But it was Women March. I was on crutches. And there was these incredible people coming together, very diverse, for a purpose that I share with them. And it was overwhelming. I was crying, I was laughing. It felt like if I am to be the olive oil, and my actions actually that I have been taken towards justice, peace, dignity, integrity, love, oneness, hopefully all the good things that could come, named or unnamed. I saw people who share the light, just like the light I see with every single person I met in Boom so far. There is a shared light in this collective. Be it on culture, arts, music, oneness, peace, love, environment. I hope I covered the 7. It's my first time to the Boom, so I don't know if you have a relationship to the 7 anchors that are part of the Boom experience. But we have music, love, oneness, peace, environment, culture, and the arts. I got the 7. So I'm in this Women March, and there are people where I feel like this light is shared, and it's overwhelming, and it got me to see the surface of water. Big surface of water, Earth, the one we live on, we share it together. And it felt like for my whole life, I was dripping oil into a surface of water, waiting and hoping for another oil drop on the water to come in and merge with mine, to have a little bit of a bigger circle that we get to combine and contribute to together. Now, growing in Damascus and living through life there, I got to meet incredible humans, human rights activists, be it politically, be it non-politically, humanitarian activists, where together we're dripping oil into this water, but the world's oil is a little bit slow to come. Or maybe we needed to go there. And for the first time in my life, I could feel and I could sense so many drops of whatever different essential oils you can imagine on a surface of water, each within their own space, holding life with respect to one another, living, sharing life as a collective, at least in that space. And the potential for all of that oil, even if it's for that interaction, whenever it gets out of the collective, each oil drop will go into its own home. But for when that connection was coming into life, they all merged into one. And it was dense, and it was thick and rich. You could feel it. Just like how you could feel it in this village that we get to create together at Boom. All of you, wherever you come from, I hope you have the home in your hearts. It has been my journey of finding home in my heart. Yet, as all refugees seek home of stability and actual roof on top of our heads, any roof, hopefully in a place of peace where we can have a decent life. As all of our essential oils are coming together into now this big, dense, rich experience that we get to co-create together, really, in every possible way. My perspective is to do and to be. You see, if I'm going to wait for the person to come and clean the washroom, if I see plastic bottle on the floor, in my personal life, I'm grateful to my family to have taught me that. I pick it up. And in Damascus, actually, I would always make things a game, as much as I can. And I appreciate living with an incredible person who takes life from a playful lens. But someone would in Damascus, people could possibly throw garbage from the window of their car, for example. Not the best example to give of my culture, but reality. And I would pick it up and I say, "Excuse me, you dropped this." And here I am, short hair, wearing my basketball clothes, not looking like a normal girl you would see in Damascus. And I would get lectured. I got so many lectures from different people, either questioning who I am or asking me or telling me to be in a certain way. Yet I really got to learn how it's all about everyone exploring their own flow, as long as we are respectful to one another. Is once there is that respect in communication, and that respect is from the place of oneness. And again, and I appreciate Boom. It's again my first experience. I didn't know a lot about Boom before this came into my path. But I appreciate the shared values between many people that we get to see here. Many of you, probably all of you. As our essential oils are coming together, into this experience that we are co-creating. It can't not be in my conscious to think, how are we going back into life after this? Knowing that all of us are coming from one collective experience that really, in my belief, changed everything. COVID. COVID, for me, is a blessing. Again, good things come, they may be bad for you. Bad things come, they may be good for you. Everything has good and bad. Syria, war, yeah. It's an ancient land with many beautiful sites that I hope you will get to explore, and I hope I will get to see again. Yet, I choose to see that for the very first time in the history of humanity, people in Syria never wanted to go. We had everything we ever wanted, and more, gratefully. So the land is rich, the people is rich, the culture is rich. Yet, with that, we get to carry it with us. And for the very first time, after wherever you live, you may see Lebanese restaurants, you may see Turkish doner, you may see whatever cuisines or foods from different cultures that at some point migrated. You don't necessarily need to see it as refuge. You know, people call it refugee. At the end, as it was in the conversation a few days ago, migration is a human right. People get to move. You get to come to Boom from wherever you are. People can't come to Boom if they don't have the paper document to cross borders with. I have a Canadian-issued refugee travel document. Sometimes it makes it challenging at airports, but sometimes it makes me cut the queue of the machine, so I appreciate it. It's definitely better than a Syrian passport at this point, from the lens of crossing borders. You see, when I went to Canada, I didn't land on my own. I came through a program called the Private Sponsorship Program, a program that many countries around the world are now embracing. I was actually in Geneva just a few weeks ago on World Refugee Day as part of the Canadian Team Canada within the Refugee Advisory Network of Canada to give advice and support on a global lens for whatever is happening in refugee communities. And I got to be in a room with people in leadership positions who are taking on this private sponsorship program to come into life. What is the private sponsorship program? It is community coming together, really. It's people who don't know each other. They say, I see a problem, and it feels like this could be a good solution. Shall we try? Yeah, okay. Can we have 5, 6 people come together? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 come together. Let's do some fundraising. You don't need to worry too much about the money. There are people that can help us with that. Great. Okay, what do we need to do? There's this person outside in the world who needs our support to cross borders and to come to safety. People I never knew in my life came together to create something called a circle of hope. And through that circle of hope, when I came to Canada, I had a connection to people. It took time for me to land where I landed. But then you land and there are people already there to welcome you. Now, if that is something you can explore, great. But the basic thing that I would invite you to explore from your perspective, and please forgive me, as I know it's not so much of the Boom vibe, but yet one way or another, it is within the Boom essence. Every and each one of you, you do something in life outside of Boom. So diverse. Could be anything really in this room. Like we can have a big, really rich pot of different trades, skills, talents, employment. Maybe people are in nonprofits, corporate, or wherever you come from. I invite you to support or to think of connecting with the refugee from the lens of social determinants of health, employment, work, your skill. You see, in Canada, I was hired to jumpstart an organization called Jumpstart Refugee Talent, a refugee-led nonprofit organization that supports refugees in seeking and finding meaningful employment. Because after all, really, if it's not meaningful, then we're not really living. And this goes to everything in life. Being able to share wisdom with one another and really see each other as same, as one. It happened by alignments of the stars that I was born in a specific space and time, that my soul, my very first breath, came to this body on a certain land. Same goes to all of us. And to bring us to the present moment, to where we are and where we are heading. We are heading towards a new moon. I heard that every year boom was happening on a full moon. And I have so much gratitude, and I'm so happy that this is happening on a new moon. It's one of the most special times of the year for me, because at that time, you get to observe the sky the best. You see, when I came here, after the very first big round around with the bus, remember the bus? It went around, and then at some point I landed at night. And I heard the sound of the music of the alchemy, and I danced, and I looked up, and I recognized constellations that for the very first time in my life I got to learn in Syria. In the south of Syria, a city called Suwaida translates to the one that is black. It's a land, it's a city that grows on the volcanic land, so all the structures, architecture, everything is from black stones, because that's really all they have there, making the most out of what we have. I got to know Orion, Jabbar, and that was to observe the Perseids meteor shower. The Perseids meteor shower is one of the 2 biggest meteor showers in the year. Anywhere for you, an invitation around the world, Northern Hemisphere, again, apologies for the Southern Hemisphere. But every single year, mid-August, it happens. More in perfect weather conditions, more than 100 meteors per hour. Per hour, 100. You lay down and it's like fishing. You lay down on your back, you look at the sky, and you get lost in the infinity of the world. And you get to see you shooting star after shooting star after shooting star. And it gets you to see the infinity within the heart. At least that's what it did to me. The more I connect to the infinity of possibilities, the more I'm being able to anchor into our oneness, and I get to see it in the eyes of people who really care. So thank you for caring, for being here, for however your day has been going, and for you to decide to sit here and hear me talk for an hour. I apologize if I said anything that did not sit well with you. Know that I spoke from my heart, from a place of love. And I look forward to this new moon coming up. As in my spiritual practice, it's not any new moon. It's the new moon of the new year. So I am walking into a new year, and we got to learn from different people we got to meet in different cultures, apparently, that it was the new year in the Mayan tradition just yesterday or the day before. Many things are in alignment now. And each single one of us, whatever we're doing something. Thank you for being intentional in your life, for breathing from your heart, Enjoy being on the dance floor. And as you continue dancing with life, I invite your perspective of refugees, whatever it was, good or bad, and whatever you took from this sharing, to carry it with you in your heart, if you wish. Otherwise, with today's sunset, please release it into the water. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Masa, for sharing one of many stories that you carry inside. So far, everybody showcasing a story, an idea. We've had an interaction moment, a Q&A. I would like to mix things up a little and not have a Q&A, and not because we're out of time, but because I just want the power of a story authentically told to wash over everybody. Nothing more and nothing less. If you would like a burning question, I'm sure Masa can be found at some point, and with her consent, you could inquire. But take some stories that you gather from here home. This is what we can take from here. It's the easiest thing, I think, that we can take from here with us. And I would also like to remind folks that before we started writing stuff down, our original historians were walking storytellers. They would walk from village to village and share information. They were the journalists and the historians. And the oral history lineage, we've almost lost. It's a craft that is now in the margins with only a few. And I would invite a rediscovery and a re-enchantment with this art form.
Embody it. We're all storytellers. And we're all leaders of our lives, really. I really, truly believe it. At some point, we all have the power of will, choice. And how are we choosing? But thank you for speaking of storytelling. I forgot to say something. Well, not forgot. I can say many things, but if I can share one thing. Storytelling in Syria is a profession. In Damascus, just like how you would have a carpenter, you would have a person who's a doctor, we have storytellers, not for children, but we have a man whose job, oftentimes men, so I appreciate, and Arabic is a masculine, feminine language, so if for me as a storyteller, I would say I'm a hakawatiyeh, female storyteller. Hakawati is a male storyteller. And you would find them in cafes every day, evening, sunset time, there to tell stories. So in the culture, actually, you just, as you live, and many people used, before the revolution started, tourists would, everyone was coming to see what is this Damascus. And you would find kind of broken English or like Arabic storytelling or how, and then the storyteller would get so happy. Old camera or like the Nokia phones have like some kind of a good camera wanting to take all of the tourists taking his photo telling the story. I thank you for the invitation. Yet if there is a burning question, I would invite, and if it's okay with you, to be shared with the collective. So if anyone, I'm more than happy to speak of anything. If anyone has a question that you would still put into the collective, then please, I don't just invite you, I urge you to speak.
I think they got convinced about the story washing over them.
No. We have a hand. We have a hand. Please.
Thank you for very much for your story. I just want to say that I'm from Ukraine and needed to leave my country a couple of months ago due to the war. And for me also, was very difficult to accept this, being called a refugee, difficult to accept this status. So I can very much relate to that. this like word refugee and me, like it was like it's not me, but like you're called everybody like that, and after day by day, it was like easier to accept. Yeah, so that's it.
Yeah. Like currently, so again, when I was in Geneva, I was attending something called the annual tripartite consultations on resettlement, where countries from around the world come together with international NGOs and civil society to understand how can we as a collective of humanity to do something about resettlement of refugees. In the opening speech, for the very first time of this event happening, there was a refugee speaking. So far, so many things have been happening without refugees being included in the conversation. 2018 was the very first time in the history of the world that a refugee was sitting in those big rooms. You see them big circle, many people with suits and ties talking politics or whatever they're talking. 2018 was the very first time in the history that we share that a refugee was sitting in the room where they have been talking about refugees for years. From Canada. He was Syrian as part of the Canadian delegation. And so then Canada challenged other countries to say, include refugees in the conversation. Because then I'm not imagining what you might need. I am actually bringing you to the table to say, how does this work? What do you think? What would you want? And try to see the meaningful inclusion of refugees into society. Not to assume and ask is always encouraged. And my heart is with Ukrainians, Palestinians, Yemenis. I'm not even going to count. Now, one thing that we learned, and it's reality, we saw that in the Ukraine situation, the reaction of the world was different than when Afghanistan happened. Reality. I choose not to question why. I choose to say, amazing, okay, you did this. How can I take it and not reinvent the wheel? You did this for Ukrainian refugees? Thank you, please, yes. You should be doing this to everybody, if you can. How can we find ways to say, those are the pathways that opened up to whatever aspect or stream of people seeking refuge? How can I expand it? How can I mimic it? How can I explore my creativity to say, this is a challenge that we share? In the opening ceremony, in this present moment, 1% of the population of Earth is refugee. 1%. In 2050, not too many years ago, now 2022, so 25 and 3, 28. In 28 years, do you know how much percent of the world population is expected to become of refuge, considering specifically climate change and environment? Any guesses? How much percent? 15. No, 50? 50? I think 1% and no one's knowing what to do with it. I pray not 50. I hope we don't get there. 15, 1-5. Right now, with 1% of the population being refugees, there is no system. And an invitation from my lens and perspective, not to see it as the system is broken. The system was not built for this in the first place. Whatever the system was built for, fantastic, you did your job. Whomever created the system is a human like us. That was living in whatever age and time. I love the energy of boomers and the purpose I have been seeing in everyone's heart. Somehow, one way or another, all of you, hopefully, either have found a way to purpose, same for me, of course, or exploring. And it's an endless journey of exploration of purpose. But explore that creativity in a solution, as the whole world is going in a slope of in a slope that needs a collective to hold it. Yeah. A collective is the answer. We need unity, we need oneness to be able to raise light and raise truth. Yeah.
And I would also leave you with a question of where do you store your stories in the body? Where have you stored this one? Last night, chatting backstage with our sign language interpreters, they were telling me, we get to be so creative here. We get to work with our bodies to express what the people are saying. And it's an incredibly embodied storytelling art form. And just spending some time thinking and connecting to that, how that experience is channeled, how it's perceived, how it's emotionally charged. It's already blowing my mind as to what the capacity of story is if we just deepen our connection to it. Thank you all very much.
Maybe one last thing as a collective. We have been, I don't know, has anyone been to the quantum care sessions in the mornings? Anybody? Or a completely different crowd?
This is the evening people.
Amazing. Wow. So 3 days we have been here, myself and Eda, offering meridian yoga therapy and quantum care sessions. But today was the last day, so maybe next boom. Though one thing we practice, and a practice that changed my life, is mindful movement. I got to spend my COVID quarantine time with a mindful movement wellness and growth coach who's a health scientist. So it's been really life transforming. So if you're planning to make a move, we can stretch together. If you want to have your own flow, then please do. I encourage you to enjoy the sunset. Sunsets have been the biggest part of my healing journey. Ever since I landed in Abu Dhabi, and that one night I couldn't sleep, every night with my mom, a little bit before sunset time, she would come to me, say, Masa, yalla, let's go. Whatever I'm doing, I just go. We lived close to the water. And the flow of moon and sun really helps the flow to anchor into. So enjoy your boom. That's it for me. Off the stage. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.